empowering everyday Asian Pacific Islander Nevadans. Nevada is home to a growing APIA community, accounting for 1 in 10 voters. We are One APIA Nevada. Concili Incorporated is Nevada's premier Democratic campaign firm, fighting for progressive issues and candidates for over a decade, and proud sponsor of Battleborn Progress.
This episode of Out in Front brought to you by
Concili Inc., Nevada State Education Association, One APIA Nevada, Silver State Voices, and Stefan and Marta Schmidt, as well as our episode sponsors, Save Lives Nevada and Washoe Education Association.
Out in Front with Annette. My name is Annette Magnus, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. Hope y'all are doing well tonight. Happy early Mother's Day. We are talking about an incredibly important topics this evening. The first one is with two of my very dear friends, Leslie Turner with the Mass Liberation Project. She's going to be talking about the Black Mamas bailout. And then my fellow Sagittarius queen, Kiko Cooks, she's going to be talking about the Black Mamas bailout as well. And then later in the show, we're going to be joined by Amber Falgo, our Northern Nevada manager, to talk about the Roe versus Wade leak this week and what that means for people all around the country and here in Nevada. So stay tuned with more on that. Leslie, thank you so much. Welcome back to the show. It's so great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about Mass Liberation and the important work y'all do all around the state, but also here in Clark County.
Sure. For those that don't know me, my name is Leslie Turner. I don't know why that's funny to me. I'm probably just nervous. So anyway, Leslie Turner, I'm the co-director of the Mass Liberation Project, Nevada, and also the Black Liberation Organizing Collective Fund, which is something that we're trying to still get off the ground, but it is created, it exists. And basically, we exist to really bring forth Black liberation, and that is defined by us as Black people. So Black liberation looks a lot of different ways. The Mass Liberation Project was a project incubated at PLAN, Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. So shout out PLAN for 4 years. And in that role, we did a lot of things. We did a lot of policy work, a lot of dismantling systems, community education, and we kind of just built the foundation for what we are doing now, which is all of those things, plus more, because every day we're redefining what liberation means to us. So I think that we do a lot. So I'll just, kind of briefly talk about the main things that we do. One being policy, which I already mentioned. We do a lot of work organizing, finding formerly incarcerated people, connecting with them and bringing them into the fold in terms of civic engagement, but also just running for office, also just getting involved in bringing forth change in their communities. And while also centering the voices of those that are most impacted, we also do participatory defense, which is organizing within the courtroom. We have a lot of cases right now. We have about 12 cases where we are helping people actively fight their case, bringing the whole person to the forefront. So like when you go to court, the district attorney talks about you and the alleged charges from a very kind of boxed in view. So we try to widen that view. We try to really humanize folks and talk about who the person is, just outside of what they were charged with. And so that's kind of the work we do with participatory defense. We obviously bail out Black moms. We also bailed out hundreds of protesters during the uprising. And our bail fund, the Vegas Freedom Fund, we actually created as a community collective where we not only posted bails, but we also did a ton of community services like, we pay people's rent, we pay people's utility bills, we got people's cars fixed, we got ACs fixed, we did food runs, we paid for mental health services, we paid for rehab, we've paid for a lot of different things because there's a lot of different things that our community needs right now. So we don't try to put a limit on it. So that work continues. We're gearing up right now to bail out Black moms, like I said. And that's really just rooted in, this is actually our 5th year bailing out Black moms. And it's so important that everybody understands that the reason why we focus on Black women is one, just our philosophy of Black liberation means that liberation for all comes through Black women, comes through liberation of Black people. And, we saw that last year when we cleared out the city jail of every Black woman, we cleared out county jail of every Black woman, we paid their bails while simultaneously fighting for policy change around traffic tickets, decriminalizing traffic tickets. We were able to be a part of kind of the wave of organizations that supported AB 116 to get that passed, which made it so folks can stop getting arrested for traffic tickets, which I just want to add is still happening. We're still hearing from people all the time that are in warrant status right now that are being arrested for traffic violations, unpaid traffic tickets. We just posted bail a couple months ago for a Black mama on traffic. She was, arrested on traffic. So it is still happening up until June 2023 in some jurisdictions. But regardless, we helped pass that legislation simultaneously while we were freeing Black mamas from cages. So that's a perfect example of how the work that we do does lead to liberation for all. And that is the point. So I'll pass it to Akiko, or I don't know if I should pass it back to Annette, but
yeah, I'm gonna ask Akiko another question.
Okay.
So Akiko, you've been doing this work for a long time. I want you to introduce yourself as well. But tell us about the campaign that y'all are working on again, the Black Mamas Bailout, and why y'all chose to do this special event for Mother's Day again this year. Why is this so important to do?
So I'm Akiko Cooks, lead organizer of the Mass Liberation Project. I'm also the co-founder of 1865 No Racism in Schools. And the two are married, like they're twins, basically, because a lot of what happens to Black mamas, a lot of it comes through the education system as well. So, but if we don't focus on Black women, who will? History has shown us that Black women are the least protected and the least respected. So Black women have to show up for Black women. So that's, of course, the first reason why we do it. Like, we know what is happening to us. We know what is being done to us. So we have to step into that gap. And we choose Mother's Day because that is when, that is a day that's celebrated around moms. Those mamas deserve to be home with their families, and those families deserve to have that Black mama home with them. And when we were posting bails last year, we were seeing people who had charges for like trespassing, elder women, like in their 70s, lots of mental illness, lots of things that don't deserve to be locked in a cage. So it's very important to us to solely focus on Black women during Mother's Day. And unapologetically, we do that. We stand up, we say it, we're loud, we don't care who gets offended. Like, why are you mad that we're focusing on Black women is the question you should be asking yourself. Why am I mad about that? So when we look at the race, like by numbers in the county jail or the city jail, it's mostly Black women. So on Mother's Day or Mother's Day weekend, we know we can offset those numbers. We do it loud and we do it proud. So going to those bail windows, knowing the how these mamas are going to react when they get home, knowing that we don't know you, but we don't need to know you to care about you and to know that you have value and that you are worth coming home. So that's what we do. That's why we're steady asking people to donate. Whatever you can give, like every penny counts, and it helps us to not only bail them out, but to go beyond the bail, and then, create these supportive services so that these Black mamas can thrive. They deserve to thrive, not just live. So helping them to do that without systems in place that are time, where there's strings attached to it, redefining what healing looks like and what justice looks like, and asking out of the box questions. We're not just doing a risk assessment. It's radical. We're radical with this work, and that's how we're moving through it, and then organizing our mamas while we're doing it as well.
Leslie, same question for you. I'm so glad that Akiko said that it's unapologetically Black women that you're bailing out for Mother's Day. Talk to us about why it was so important for y'all to focus on Black women during this time, and what that means in terms of the number of incarcerated Black women, the number of incarcerated Black folks, and why we should be drawing attention to this issue.
Well, anytime that you talk about the criminal justice system, it's like race is a part of that. So there's no way to kind of separate the two. They're married, like Akiko said earlier. Those two things go hand in hand. And that goes back to the historical context. And that's why it's so important for us to know history. I know it's like, a talking point in terms of politics when we talk about critical race theory, but what is critical race theory? It's basically like telling the truth about what actually happened. And I went to Ghana in December of last year, and I got to go and be exactly where my ancestors were, where they were enslaved, where they were held before they were loaded up onto slave ships and brought to the Americas. And that whole experience was really kind of eye-opening in the sense that it was in the embodiment of political education. So we can learn about it, and we can talk about how mass incarceration and the prison industrial complex is connected to slavery. But when you go there, you can see it for yourself. You can see the structures that look exactly the same. They look exactly as the same as the cell. You can see the bars. You can see the structures that were used for police training, in West Africa. So again, this isn't something that we just came up with. The criminal justice system, the prison industrial complex is a vestige, is a continuation of slavery. And therefore, it is never going to be disconnected from talking about race. And so in that sense, Black people are disproportionately impacted by the criminal justice system. Black women are disproportionately in cages here, globally and nationally. So that is why we're going to focus on Black women, especially because we are Black women. We are also Black women who are directly impacted. So every year we have this debate where it's like, well, what about other women, and what about other people, and like why are you focused on Black women? Well, I think Akiko said it best, is like, if not us, who else is going to focus on Black women if it's not us? And Black women also have always been the backbone of movement when we want to talk about progressive movements, the civil rights movement, Black Lives Matter, any movement that you want to name in the United States that involved kind of a revolution of oppressed people. Black women were there in the forefront, not in the forefront, actually, in the background, doing the hard work, doing the organizing to make things happen. When you want to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and, all respect, love, and appreciation to him. But do y'all know about Ella Baker? Do y'all know the person who was actually doing all of the grunt work, putting meetings together, organizing caravans? So like when we talk about the Montgomery bus boycott, they didn't just, boycott the bus. They actually put a network together so that they could still get to where they needed to go. They had a network of rides for each other. Who do you think organized that? Black women. So we're always going to focus on Black women unapologetically. And again, if you know anything about history, and if you don't, I encourage you to learn. There's a lot of material out there that you can start with. Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust by Dr. John Henrik Clarke is a great book to read, and it's also short. That's why I always recommend it to people. He breaks it all the way down, but all the work that we're doing is related to the oppression of Black people. So we're always going to focus on Black people.
Absolutely. And just for those at home, we are putting the donation buttons in the chat so y'all can donate to the Black Mamas Bailout for Mother's Day. I think it's a great place to put our money and our efforts and our time. So all of that is going in the chat. We also put the website for Mass Liberation in the chat so y'all can get more involved with the good work that Leslie and Akiko do all the time. And we want to keep supporting their work. All right, Akiko, I want to bring you back in. How does this campaign work? We're asking people to make donations to help bail Black mamas out. How does the campaign work, and how can folks at home who are watching tonight participate and support the good work that y'all are doing?
So we identify our mamas. We make contact with them, their families. We post bail throughout Mother's Day weekend. So the past couple of Mother's Days, we've been together doing it. So we haven't necessarily, done the whole like Mother's Day brunch. We've been together in space, bringing mamas home. And to me, it's an amazing way for me to spend my Mama's Day. You know what I'm saying? Like my Black Mama's Day, because that's what we call it. So we bail them out. We have another team of volunteers that wait for them to come home to be released. And we make sure that they get to where it is they need to go. Do you need to charge your phone? Do you need food? What do you need? Those donations go into all of that. It's not just, we go post the bail. There are lots of things that happen. There are multiple layers. We've been working on the Black Mamas Bailout since last Black Mamas Bailout to get here to, today. We have to feed our volunteers, make sure that folks get home, phone cards, Lyft, Uber rides. And then once they come home, it's not just we bail you out. Now we're getting ready to support you, because what we are doing is showing the criminal justice system and whatever system that the community can step up and help with that. We don't need prisons. We don't need jails. We don't need police. We can do that. So we're actually showing that model of what that is. The criminal justice system just has more money than us, right? If we have those coins, we can do all of that. We can build out these programs. We can build these safe spaces. When you're talking to Black people, because I'm Black, I can say it. When you talk about safety, the first thing I'm not thinking about, the police are safe for me. A cage is safe for me. That's not what I'm thinking about. I'm immediately thinking about my community and how my community can show up. And most of the time, the community is ready to show up. Just need those coins. You know what I'm saying? Like whether it's to get groceries in the house for families, diapers, formula. I just went into like a store and they were completely out of formula. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? And then you think about our mamas who are arrested for a traffic ticket or trespassing or something where they shouldn't be in a cage away from their children. What if they breastfeed? You can go to jail for 4 days and lose everything. And now they're trying to take your kids because your house is like, so it's just all these different layers of things. So we need to step into that gap to make sure that those things happen. So the programming continues into, to the education, to childcare. We're not just going to talk about, you need to go to your primary care physician. Maybe you don't want to go to maybe you don't want to do Western medicine. Maybe you want to do Ayurveda practitioner. Maybe you want to do Reiki. Insurance doesn't cover that. So we need to be able to help these mamas heal in whatever way they need to heal, because healing has to happen every day, especially when you come out of a cage. Like it's a consistent process.
And Akiko, just to follow up on that, why is it so important? I mean, I know the answer to this, but for our viewers at home, why is it so important to have mothers home for Mother's Day with their kids, with their families, with their loved ones, instead of being in a cage? Why is it so important for us to make this effort, get the donations in and get these women home to their families?
Well, it's important every day, right? Like it's important every day for our mamas to be home with their families. But when you have these, Mother's Day, when you have these days of celebration, think about a 5-year-old that is at home or a 16-year-old that is at home and their family is cooking and their mama isn't there. Think about the trauma that's happening to that child. Think about the trauma that's happening to that mama that's in this cage because she couldn't afford to pay a ticket, because she couldn't afford, good legal counsel or whatever it is, basically being penalized for being poor, right? So it's up to us Black women to step into that and make sure that they get home to their families, make sure that, and if we can give Mother's Day dinners out, me and Leslie would try to do that, but one step at a time. But the trauma that happens just from not being there, we will go back to a newborn baby or a baby that's being breastfed or nursed, or even if they just are on formula, that bonding time, that 24 hours can do a lot. So it doesn't need to happen at all. No hours need to happen where a mama is away from their child.
Next year, let's do dinners. I'll help you.
Can I just add to?
Of course you can add, Leslie.
I just want to everything Akiko just said, but also like Black women in particular are like at the center of community and the center of family. And so when we're talking about healing as Black folks, which we need to do, we can't do that without our mothers. We can't do that without the folks that bring forth life. So it's super important to focus on Black women and focus on mothers in particular. And, reuniting them with their kids is just a critical part of it. And like Akiko said, it's not just about Mother's Day. It's all the time. This is just an opportunity for us to highlight the work that we're doing and lift it up so that more eyes can see it, more people can donate, and it can be more visible because this is a holiday. But, a mother should never be separated from her child, period, and I think that we inherently know that, but yet we think that it's okay to put a woman in a cage so that, and separate her from her child for unpaid traffic tickets. And even if it's something more serious than an unpaid traffic ticket, the notion in this country is that we are innocent until proven guilty. But that benefit of the doubt is not given to Black people. It's not given to Black mamas. It's not given to Black folks in general. And so there does need to be a shift. And that is a part of the work that we do as well, shifting the narrative and really just surrounding our community with care. We need care, not cages. That's really that was our slogan, I guess you could say, all through the pandemic and all through the uprising, is that our folks need care and we need resources. The same amount of resources that are put into the police, are put into the, NDOC, that are put into all of these institutions and systems needs to be put into the community in ways that we define. We tell you what works for us because this is our community. So there just has to be a shift in general in how we look at things, what we feel we deserve as community and what we demand.
Absolutely, Leslie. And I want to stay with you for a minute, Leslie. What is the vision for the future for you and for Akiko too? And what do you see this work being in the future here in the state, but also across the country, right? We got to think bigger picture now because of all of the things that are going on and continue to go on. How do we take what's happening in Nevada and bring it elsewhere also and make change?
I think the vision for the future is all of us living in abundance and being able to thrive, not struggle day to day, not barely get by, not, making it, literally being able to thrive, being able to live in our gifts, being able to do what we're passionate about, and not have to worry about are the lights going to get cut off? Am I going to have food today? Am I going to be able to put gas in my car? So I think that's a vision for the work. And that's also just a vision for the future of like humanity. Like we should all be thriving no matter what. And that is a possibility. Like we can get there. So I think in terms of the work, we are launching guaranteed income for the moms that we bail out. And it's also going to be for some of the moms that we've already bailed out in previous years are going to be able to participate in that fellowship. It's going to be a year-long fellowship that should be launching in July, where we're going to be giving every person $500 a month. Just it's like no strings attached to income to be able to really do whatever it is they need to do with it, whatever it is that helps them get closer to thriving. We're also going to be partnering with some students at UNLV to really be able to have some research and data connected to the guaranteed income so that we can be able to tell the story of how has this positively impacted and changed their lives. And then hopefully that data can help expand the program, because we could all be getting guaranteed income. We could all be getting universal health care. You know, those are things that we have to start experimenting with amongst ourselves with our own resources and documenting that so that we can show it on a bigger scale that, hey, this does work in terms of stabilizing communities. So that's, I guess, the most immediate vision. But I think for Mass Liberation Project, we're also going to be really branching out to the diaspora. So we're going to be connecting with comrades in Brazil, the Caribbean, Africa, the continent, Ghana, and Nigeria specifically, and trying to build solidarity and build strategy together as Black people, whether we're on the continent or we're in the diaspora, but really trying to get past just like mobilizing and actually building strategy for change. And that's going to be the direction of the Mass Liberation Project. And then I think ultimately healing is going to be at the center of everything.
And Leslie, well, hang on one second. Just explain for our viewers at home what the diaspora is and what that means, because I know some folks may not know, and I want to make sure they're understanding what we're talking about.
Okay, so the diaspora is all of the places that African people ended up as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. So the diaspora is it's not somewhere where folks migrated. It is places that people ended up by force of African descent. So that includes Brazil. I always like to start with Brazil because Brazil has actually the highest population of African people of African descent. And outside of the African continent, even more than the United States. And they mirror a lot of the same problems that we have here in the United States when it comes to Black people. But it's also the Caribbean, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Jamaica. It's all of the places that, those slave ships stopped and enslaved people were placed there and they stayed there. So I think it's important when you're thinking about the diaspora, it's important to understand the path of the transatlantic slave trade and those slave routes, which you can Google it, it's there, the information's there. And you can see the path that ships took. They didn't always, but for the majority of them, they left the western coast of Africa, and then they went to which was like Haiti, which is now the Dominican Republic, Cuba. All of those places had slave ports. If you go there now, you can see those structures. A lot of them are still in existence, still standing. And that is where they were literally warehouses for enslaved people, so that they can keep them there before they move them to their final destination. And obviously, many of our people ended up in the United States, in Northern America, and and we're still here.
Thank you for that education, Leslie. Akiko, same question for you. What is the vision for the future of the work, both here in the state and across the country? And how can our viewers at home help y'all push for change?
Normalize Black liberation, make it as normal as possible, especially to Black people, for Black people to understand that we really ain't all that free right now, and we still have work to do, and we can't expect the oppressive system to be like, oh, you know what, let's be cool with them now. We can't expect that to happen. We have to make it happen for us. So to actually normalize Black liberation and for it to be like, that's the norm. And for our children to not have to deal with as much as we've done, or for us to like really have paved the way our ancestors did before us, for them to be, life to be a little bit more not as hateful and not as oppressive. So for us to be able to create that for them, and for our children to know that they deserve everything besides the oppression and the hate and this being stereotyped, and our children deserve that. So probably leaving the country. Honestly, it's, when we're looking at the things that are happening here, America itself is anti-Black. So I don't know that staying here is somewhere that I necessarily want to be or to raise my children, because we are all over this planet. We're everywhere. So those are just kind of like a few of the things, but, and how can people help? They can donate, they can volunteer. They can, and I heard Annette say, like, we're doing dinners. I heard you. I'm gonna hold you to that. We're gonna send you a contract. We're doing dinners next year, for the mamas that we bail out, like Sunday, the Mother's Day dinners. There's ways to help with that. Community, show up to our fundraisers. Like, we have a fundraiser that's being done for us Saturday at Lorenzi Park. Show up there, buy some raffle tickets, engage in community. Hop onto our Mass Lib calls and see what we're doing, what we're working on. Be ready to go to Carson City with us. Be ready to call in, through legislative session. If you don't know, get prepared to know. Learn. I didn't know everything. I'm still learning a lot of stuff. We all understand that it's a learning space, and we are more than happy to have these conversations and engage. You can always reach out to us. We're always accessible to talk about, I'm not going to say always, but we're open to having conversations. Have boundaries, please, when you hop in our inbox, please. But yeah, like, there's many, many different ways. It's not always money. Money makes it easier, but your time, your access to your resources, share it. If you have a huge, if there's a celebrity that's watching, share it. Share our link, share our flyer, or someone who has huge followers on Twitter, or, whatever your social media is. What is it called, Leslie? Social media capital or something like. Yep. All of that is money. Like, if 50,000 people and 50,000 people give $1, 50,000. So there's many, many different ways, your influence can go a very, very long way.
And I will happily be held to that. I mean, if I can give food out of a garage, I can help you all with dinners with no problem. And we're going to put that event on Saturday at Lorenzi Park in the chat for folks as well. If y'all want to come out and support their good work with me and Shelby, we will be there, and you can join us for that. So we'll put that in the chat as well. We're getting a lot of really great questions in the chat as well. If y'all have questions, put them in the chat. And we will get to our viewer questions in just a few minutes. So make sure you are putting all the questions in the chat. We're also putting other resources that Leslie is giving us in the chat as well. So this way y'all can find them on Facebook and Twitter. Follow MassLib on social media. Follow Leslie and Akiko on social media, especially Akiko. She cracks me up. We'll keep this party going and keep talking about the Black Mamas bailout. So I want to come back to this. Y'all can make donations. The donation links are in the chat as well. We want to make sure that we're giving our Black mamas as much support and love this Mother's Day as humanly possible. So if y'all can make a donation tonight, use the links in the chat and please make a donation now. All right, Leslie, I want to come back to you. How does the Black Mamas bailout intersect with all of the other good work that y'all are doing on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think, well, one is we've done a lot of work, and we will continue to do a lot of work on bail. So in the 2019 legislative session, we actually had a bill to end money bail. That bill died. However, everything that was in that bill that we were actually told was crazy. This is the words oh, y'all are crazy for this. All of those things that we were asking for in that bill were actually in the Nevada Supreme Court ruling Valdez-Jimenez in 2020. Literally every single thing that was in that original bill was in that ruling. And one of the most important things was that bail has to be dependent upon your ability to pay and how much money you have. And judges have to consider that. Sorry, that's Nasir. He just laughs out of nowhere. And judges have to actually consider your ability to pay and your income. And then also we flipped the burden of proof. So, previously you had to, if you're being held on bail, it's up to you to prove that you're not a threat to the community and that you can get out. So that kind of burden of proof has flipped now, where the burden of proof is on the state to now they have to prove in court that this person needs to be in a cage, and the default is release. So all of those came about. Like I said, all of those things were in our original bill, and then was mandated by the Nevada Supreme Court. And then little by little, those things are getting turned into law through legislation. So that is, a major part of the work that we do that intercepts with the Black Mothers Bailout, because the Black Mothers Bailout it's a tactic. It's also a way for us to meet the material needs of our people right now, to say, okay, we need to get our people out of cages. But it's also a tactic to expose what's happening and to expose the bail system in which that we're actually doing the work to try to change. So going forward, we're going to be focused a lot on pretrial in general. So it's not just bail, it's just the entire pretrial system. So that includes house arrest, that includes risk assessment tools, and that also we're going to take a look at the court. So we're going to be launching a court watch program. And that's definitely a way folks can get involved, because we need volunteers for that. But we're going to be in the courtrooms actually watching to see what the implementation of Valdez-Jimenez looks like in real time, but also to see what's happening in these courtrooms. I went to court last week and I was sitting in a courtroom in North Las Vegas, and it was crazy the way that people were being treated. People were being sent home that had court dates because they had on shorts. They were literally doing clothing checks, the bailiff was. And it's so because you have on shorts, you can't appear on your court date? People were getting sent home for having distressed jeans. That's a whole style. What are you talking about? So it's we have to be real about these things that we're seeing, and we have to heighten contradictions. To shout out to Nisha, because she always says that. That's where I got that from. But we have to heighten contradictions, because it doesn't make sense if I'm appearing in court. I came to court for my court day. I took off work. I spent gas. I paid for parking, and I'm here, and you're going to send me home because I have on shorts? It's not okay. So again, we need to start seeing those things. We need to start documenting those things so that we can change them. So that's an example of why we're launching court support. And we definitely are going to need people to get involved and be willing to sit in court and track the things that they witness.
Thank you for that. And then Akiko, I'm going to do one more question for you, and then we're going to kind of brag about some of the work y'all have done recently. How are Black women treated within the criminal justice system? And we've talked about this a little bit, but I want you to talk about some specifics. So how are Black women compared to especially like white women treated within the criminal justice system? And how can we push to make change to ensure Black people overall, but specifically Black women, are treated better in the system?
So I'm going to answer last to first. The only way, in my opinion, to assure that Black people are treated better in the criminal justice system is to abolish it. Redefine justice, the word, because it doesn't mean the same thing for us. But abolish it, because it was created to oppress us. It was created to abuse us. So it'll never change like that. It would just have to go away, right? And how we're treated, our sentences are harsher for the same crime. One of our mamas that we bailed out 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, it might have been last year, when we posted her bail, the bailiffs were telling her, like, don't nobody care about you, like nobody's gonna, and they couldn't believe, like, who posted your bail? As if she wasn't worthy, right? And I think that had to do with race. Like, who gonna come get this Black woman out and pay this much money for her? Because she ain't worth it. Like, you probably you know what I'm saying? So we are treated like less than. We are given more time for the same crime. And unless the system is abolished, that will continue. Now, we can continue to step into these gaps and continue to organize against that system and continue to create, to make it a little bit harder for them to treat us this way. But as far as like it getting better, like that, I don't see a way that would happen. But we can do different things. We can watch our judicial seats. We can watch, the judges and see who's giving what sentences out, how they're giving it out. Watch the ones who we put in these seats and then hold them accountable when they do counter what they said they were going to do. When they came and, they tap danced for the Black vote. And then when they got in that seat, they did a reverse tap dance on us, holding them accountable. Like bring that same heat we brought to get you in that seat. We're going to double that heat up and get you out that seat. Because that's to know how strong and how powerful the district attorney is. Leslie had to like break it down to me, like the district attorney is the one, like, so to know how powerful the district attorney is, and the judges and how they are passing out these sentences. So that's why court watch is important too, like tracking it, because they're going to give you their data. We got to get our own data and be able to say, no, we saw this with our own two eyes and this is not okay. What's up? What you want to do? You know what I'm saying? So, strategy. We got to do a lot of strategizing around it.
Absolutely. Leslie, I want to come back to you before we go to viewer questions, because I want you to brag about the work that you've done, because it's great. How many Black mamas have you bailed out with this campaign over time? And who else are you working with nationally that if folks in other states are watching, or if folks want to get involved with the good work all around the country happening, who are those folks? But brag about yourself first.
So we've built out about 100 Black women over the last 5 years. Altogether, we've built out probably about 1,500 people just throughout the last 5 years. And, and many of those were during the uprising, where we bailed out hundreds of protesters in like a rapid response thing that we were doing. So I think nationally, and just to back up a little bit, I kind of want to speak on what Akiko was saying, is like reimagining everything that we thought we knew, I think is what's going to be required for us to move collectively as a community forward and as like humanity forward. So when it comes to like justice, I think it's really important that we're defining justice for ourselves, because justice we've been told what justice is. We've been given that term, and we've been told, justice is, a person going to prison for, life. And I think that we have to look within ourselves to define what justice is to us outside of these structures, outside of systems, because justice is healing. Justice is the person who was harmed being healed, and it's the person who's caused harm to be healed as well, so that they don't continue to commit harm. So what does that look like? How do we make that happen on a real scale? So that's kind of what we're thinking about and what we're trying to build out. I think nationally, who we're working with, the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls, we're working with the National Bailout. They provide resources for us every year, including this year. We partner with them. We're a part of a network of organizations that are all part of the Mass Liberation Hub, which is, Mass Liberation Arizona. There's Life After Release, Out for Justice, which are in Maryland. There's Safe Return Project in Richmond, California. There's Michigan Liberation in Detroit. So again, we're all connected. We all gather and we build strategy, and we build not just strategy, but we build relationships, deep relationships with each other, so that we can actually be real comrades, because being in this movement requires you to actually have deep love for each other. So those are some of the organizations. I put some more in the chat that you can Google. But Song, I also want to shout out Song in Atlanta, Georgia. Mary Hood, she was the one who actually came up with the idea to bail out Black moms, way back in 2016. And so the legacy of her work continues with us. So hopefully that answered your question.
You absolutely did. And if y'all want to support the good work that Mass Liberation here in Nevada is doing, make sure you donate. We want to get as many donations in for Black Mamas for Mother's Day. So the links are in the chat. As Akiko said, your money goes a long ways. Make sure that you're donating for Mother's Day, because we want to get all of our Black mamas out of jail for Mother's Day. All right, I want to go to some viewer questions before we talk about Roe versus Wade. So this can be for either one of you. Hop in. Amber actually asked, this is so amazing. What feedback have you gotten from some of the mothers that you've been able to help?
I dropped a video
and it's in the chat for everybody, so y'all can watch it.
Yeah, so definitely watch that video. We produced that last year. That's one of the moms that we bailed out. Her bail is $50K. I guess most of the feedback has been that one, they're like, I don't understand why y'all care about me, because we're not used to community care. We're not used to like, I'm here and I'm going to love on you and I'm going to love you through this issue. So I think initially it's just like shock, and then we just try to build a sisterhood. And so I think that it feels weird, like speaking for other people, but I think just some of the feedback I've heard is like that this is life-changing, that, they want to come back and help other moms, which they do. The mom, if you watch the video, she talks about how we bailed her out and how her life changed. And, she's at the bail window with us every year posting bails now. So it's just, it's reciprocal. And I think that it is a chance for people to really transform themselves, because that is really what this is all rooted in. So, and then I'll see if Akiko wants to add anything.
I've seen some of our mamas become very okay with accountability and saying like, oh, I may have, I messed up, but you still love me. You still care about me. Like, you're still willing to invest in me, even though I messed up. Yeah, we all mess up. So watching that happen, like Leslie said, it's transformative. Watching them, and then their children are seeing this happen. And then now the children have new aunties, coming around, and cousins, and really showing what community is. And we're talking about people who probably have never experienced community the way that we've experienced, or the way that we model and live every day. So building that out, like that village that you always hear people talk about, we actually live in that village, actually, like in real life, not just saying, oh, it takes a village. No, we are actually that village. So that's a lot of feedback that I heard. Like, I didn't, I've heard about it, but I didn't know that this is what actually really happens. It do here at the Mass Liberation Project, it does. So that's some of the stuff that I've heard.
I really like this next question. And Akiko, I'm going to start with you with it because you and I talk about this a lot. And I know Leslie and I have sat in my backyard and talked about this over pasta. Brian asks, what are some of the biggest struggles that come from doing this work in the community?
White folks being mad that we're doing the work and attacking us for it, which we don't care. Be big mad, put on the cape, and then you're super mad, but we're still going to do the work. So having people question why we do it in a negative way, not giving a question as like they really want to learn and know, in a negative way. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, or trying to counteract, well, what about Black dads? What about them? If you want to bail them out, then go bail them out. Well, what about white women? And what about this woman? And what about that woman? You can do all of that just like we're doing what we're doing. Don't ask me to look for anybody else. I've already found who I want to focus on. That we found that, and that's what we're doing. So having resistance from the community for something that's so positive, like how was this turned into a negative, and people intentionally trying to find reasons that this is bad or find reasons of why we're doing what we're doing. And just not having, I'm not even going to say not having that support, because we do have a lot of support, but to watch people be actually angry about something so positive and loving, like something has really got to be wrong with you for you to frown upon love. Like you need something, I don't know, but that energy is painful and it's hurtful. But we still do it. Like we still rock through because we love on each other as we're doing it.
Akiko, and I'm going to ask you this question, and I know the answer, but I think it's important to ask it for the viewers at home. Why do you think white people get so upset about Black people focusing on loving Black people, or, people in the community focusing on loving Black folks?
Because America is anti-Black, and that's normal. It's normal. Like that's the norm to not love Black people. It's the norm to love our culture. It's the norm to love our hairstyles. It's the norm to love our food, but it's not the norm to love us. It's not the norm to love the creators of all of those things. So because you have a world that is anti-Black, it just makes sense for people to just, it's in their DNA, I guess. Like, no, I'm not going to say that, but it's just normal to hate Black people. Like I don't even think they know why. Ask them. Ask one of your cousins or whatever people, like, why do you not like Black people? And they're going to look at you. They don't know. And again, we don't care.
My racist grandparents don't know why they don't love you. So that's why I don't talk to them. That's why I don't talk to them anymore, because I don't have those people in my life. Leslie, same question for you. What are some of the biggest struggles that come from doing this work in the community?
I would say that also, Black people also embody white supremacy. And, last year, I remember we were all like, wow, because we had a phone call from a Black man who was actually upset that we bailed out his wife. And it wasn't because, he didn't want her home, but it was because he felt that was racist, that we only focused on Black women. So again, like white supremacy and just the myth of white supremacy and that kind of philosophy is so deeply ingrained in not just white people, it's ingrained in us as well. And so it's important that we're using our time to actually deconstruct those ways of thinking. And, we do that through loving ourselves. And reconnecting with who we are. So I would say, definitely the backlash and also lack of resources. I think if we knew 50,000 people and everybody would just give $1 and we had $50,000 and we could, use that as a down payment on a property and turn that property into a compound where that was like a safe place for Black people. That sounds so easy, and seems pretty easy, but again, it's just lack of resources. I think is just an ongoing struggle in this work. There's a lot of barriers you have to jump through to get funding and to get grants, and that those barriers shouldn't exist. We should be putting money into community all the time, and especially in the things that community says we need to heal. And then I also think one of the other struggles is just this work is very difficult. It's hard. It's hard work. So you put your whole energy into it, your whole heart, your spirit, and it's draining. It's draining. There's a lot of people in movement who have died from stress. Young people who have had strokes. Like, it's not easy because you're dealing with backlash from both sides, because you're dealing with the expected backlash of like white supremacy, but you're also dealing with it amongst your own people, the same people who, you have your heart on your sleeve for. So it's definitely work that requires rest, that requires, pauses, that requires really just like self-care, next level self-care, and a heavy emphasis on healing. And again, those things also require resources, So I'm back to the resource thing. We really have to start figuring out ways to bring abundance and bring money into movement.
Yes, all of those things. Thank you for that. And thank you, Leslie and Akiko, for sharing about the Black Mamas bailout. We're not done yet. We still got lots to talk about because there was some other dumb shit that happened this week that we're going to talk about. But I just want to remind everybody, if y'all want to donate for the Black Mamas bailout for Mother's Day, the link is in the chat. Please help us bail out Black mothers for Mother's Day. We need to get this done for our community. And I'd love to have all of you support this important work. So links in the chat. Go on MassLib's Facebook and Twitter. Support their good work. Support Leslie, support Akiko, and all of the good stuff that they're working on. All right. Leslie, Akiko, if y'all want to stick around for this hot take session, you are more than welcome to. I'm going to bring Amber in. She is our Northern Nevada manager. And Amber, thank you for joining us tonight. You are going to talk to us about the draft of the decision that will most likely be coming soon around Roe versus Wade and abortion. Luckily, here in Nevada, we have abortion codified in the Nevada Revised Statutes. We are one of 7 states to have done so in the early 90s. Thanks to many of our foremothers who came before us. And now we are poised to be one of the only states in the country to have safe, legal, and accessible abortion. So Amber, come on in, join us, talk to us about your story, and tell us a little bit about what happened this week with the leaked draft, which is unprecedented.
Thank you so much, Annette. I am happy to be here to discuss this important topic. Let me first preface this by saying I never ever thought in my 30 plus years that I would see the end of Roe versus Wade. Now, some people may think that is naive, and I can certainly understand why. What we saw this week, I'll start there, and then I'll move a little bit to why abortion is so crucial. We saw an unprecedented leak from the Supreme Court this week of a draft opinion that essentially undoes everything. It's a really, the opinion that the draft opinion that they released was, it will have far and wide implications because they take sort of an extreme position in that it's almost as if they're saying Roe versus Wade should have never happened. So it's very scary, especially for states that have laws on the books that are going to go into enactment immediately, laws that are being prepped to go into enactment once this opinion is actually released. So I've never felt so lucky as I did this week to live in Nevada, specifically on this issue, because we are in a good position. We are definitely going to feel the effects as other states, specifically more conservative states, essentially do away with abortion or make it so restrictive that people cannot access it. But that's sort of what happened this week. And I do want to stress that, again, this opinion it's not final until the Supreme Court actually does their official opinion and the official ruling. So it is still legal. People should keep their appointments. And we definitely want to stress that because we don't want folks to go without this much needed service.
Absolutely. And Amber, you asked to come on tonight to talk about this because you are a mother of 2 amazing children, but you've also had an abortion. And that is something that you are not shy about talking about. So talk to me about what the decision, when you heard it this week, what that meant to you and how you felt when that was put out into the world.
Absolutely. Thank you. I felt scared for a lot of people who need to access abortion because this is not going to impact people like me who have the means to travel, who have the means to pay for an abortion. It's going to impact people who don't, lower income folks, single parents, people who are not able to travel 4 states over. That's where it's going to impact folks. I was fortunate that I had an abortion when I was about 28 or 29 years old. I had resources to pay for that abortion. I didn't have to travel out of state. That was an option, but I didn't have to do that. There was a provider here in Reno specifically. I think it's important to put the narrative out there that it's not just single people that have abortions. It's not a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old. That's not the majority. The majority of people that have abortions are people with children. They're people in families, okay? And having an abortion can be because you don't want to take time away from the children you have. It can be because you can't financially afford another child. There are a vast number of reasons that people seek abortions. And in my case specifically, I was not prepared to have a child with the person that I was with at the time. And the person that I was with at the time was borderline physically abusive and verbally abusive and mentally abusive and all of those other things. So I know that was the right decision because I would not want to raise a child around someone who I was not comfortable with and did not feel secure with, right? So I don't believe in that. And I am so grateful and fortunate to have been able to make that decision. So my main takeaway this week was a grave sense of fear for folks who are not going to be able to access these services now.
Leslie, I want to bring you in on this topic if you want to join us. Obviously, I'm sure you heard the news the same time we did. I got texted the article by a group of friends who happened to all be women. And we all thought this decision would be out sometime in, late June or July, but this leak obviously kind of thrust it upon us a little earlier. What was your takeaway this week when that decision was leaked, and how did you feel about that?
I think my initial reaction was just kind of like disbelief. I've lived in other countries where abortion is illegal. And so I was just kind of, I mean, it's not surprising in terms of this country and the direction that we're headed, and just kind of the removal of our sovereignty over our own bodies. And, I think that has been playing out. It's been playing out through the pandemic. It's been playing out, through the battle of the battle of the vaccines. It's been playing out in multiple ways for a while. So I'm not surprised that we're here. Me personally, it's scary to see that, they're actually going to move forward with this. And it's just an example of why we have to care and we have to pay attention to who's being appointed to the Supreme Court and how that whole process happens. And I feel that our communities are not educated on that. We don't know the way that it goes, like why, it's important for certain people to be elected president, because if they're not, then we're going to get people like, on the Supreme Court that actually are not in alignment with the sovereignty that we seek. So I guess for me, it's more of the same when it comes to this country, but also I guess my initial reaction is just wanting to educate my folks, wanting to educate Black women and Black people about what this means for us, and also thinking about what is it going to look like on a community level in terms of organizing when we have someone, a loved one that needs an abortion. What is that going to look like? And I think that we have to also put the same amount of resources, care, love, attention, and conversation into reproductive justice and support for mothers and support for having a healthy birth. We have to put that same energy into those areas as well. But, how are we going to kind of reckon with the fact that we might not have access to abortions anymore in this country eventually? So, I've been wrestling with what it all means as well.
Akiko, I want to bring you back in if you still want to talk about this issue. And Amber, Leslie, feel free to hop into, for me, this is an issue before I came to Battle-Born Progress. I worked on for a very long time at Planned Parenthood. I was there for 6 years. I went and canvassed in Mississippi when they were trying to ban abortion there the first time, and talked to community about why personhood is a scam and not a thing that needs to be on the books. And what I saw in those communities was, when you ban abortion, you're hurting disproportionately people of color, poor people, people who need access to services most and don't have access through, insurance or any other way to seek services. So Akiko, when you heard this, my mind went there. It went to my time in Mississippi and the folks that I had the privilege to engage with. What were your thoughts when you heard the news this week, Akiko?
Here they go again. And it's more than likely men making these decisions for us. And, it will be us who will be, definitely impacted, because people get their abortions for many different reasons, and everyone should have that right to. Being forced to have a child that you're not ready for, you don't want, whatever the situation is, it's not okay. You're controlling our bodies. And Black women experience that definitely through the enslavement time, and where our bodies are controlled. Our body, you tell us what to do with our body, and you do what you want to do with our body. And then the minute, because we can't abort, because we can't, make this decision for ourselves, so now somebody might have 8 kids that they can't afford to take care of. They're working 2 and 3 jobs. And then the state wants to come in and try to take your kids away from you. Because childcare, whatever is going on, it's like a setup. And it feels like, men again are like, real handmaid hellish going on right now. So we got to pay attention to these shows as they're kicking them out, because they're telling a whole story. But it was definitely, here they go again. And what will we do is figure out solutions around it if it happens, because that's what we do. because it's going to be illegal. So we know what that means. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it was, I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked.
Absolutely. I think I felt the exact same way, Akiko. More of the same, right? And unfortunately, I knew it was coming. And I knew that's been their course all along. That's why they put those Supreme Court justices on that court. That's why that was a setup too, right? And it's been a setup for years, and they've been planning for this for years, so that they can control our bodies. And it makes me sick. And even though I knew it was coming, and even though I suspected that was going to be the decision, seeing the words in print actually made me physically ill, because I know what the repercussions are. I worked in a health center. I know the people who need these services most, and I've seen these services firsthand. And it really upsets me what I saw this week. We actually have a question in the chat from Maria for me. She said, so for those who don't know, what is personhood and what types of laws are those? So this is the slippery slope that the right has been trying to set up for years in this country. They'll go to areas where certain courts will be more sympathetic to their nonsense, and then set up these laws, get them in place, like the Texas law. It'll go through the Fifth Circuit, which is notoriously bad on this issue, and then it'll make its way to the Supreme Court. Basically, what this does is a personhood law essentially deems a fetus a person and gives them the same rights as the person carrying the fetus. Therefore, it makes personhood, if you abort that fetus, it makes personhood so that you're, essentially murdering a fetus, which is not the case. In addition to that, there's also other laws that they've tried for years, trap laws, where they will set it up so that abortion clinics have to have certain size doors, certain size windows, things that have nothing to do with medical procedures, so that it makes it almost impossible to operate a healthcare facility that is offering abortion procedures. And then in addition to that, there's all kinds of other laws that are now these trigger laws that have happened that are on the books that Amber was talking about, where if Roe versus Wade falls, then immediately it reverts back to abortion is illegal, and you can go, have various things happen to you. Or in the case of Texas, now there's vigilantes that can send you to jail. All of this will be challenged in court. All of this will continue to be a fight. We're not done fighting on this. And as Amber said earlier, abortion is not illegal in this country. This was simply a draft decision that was leaked, but we will have a decision probably in late June, early July, based on the timeline with the Supreme Court. And I suspect that will be the decision that is made. And so people do need to keep their appointments. People do need to make sure that they are seeking these services if they need to. And remember that there will be states that will still be legal for you to have an abortion. Nevada is one of those states. And we are proud of the fact that we are a pro-choice state, and we will continue to make sure that people can access abortion services in this state safely and legally. I think Leslie is 100% right that we do need to pay attention to who's on our courts, but we also need to pay attention to who we're electing for this issue as well. When we're talking about criminal justice, it's so incredibly important to know who the DA is, who our judges are, things like that. But for this issue too, for your bodily autonomy, for abortion services, it is so imperative to know who we are putting in positions of power, because those positions of power will have the ability to decide these types of issues, whether or not you can seek abortion services. And let me just tell you, friends, they will not stop here. You can guarantee they're going to go on to marriage equality. They're going to go on to things like birth control, because this is about control and manipulation of other people's lives and autonomy. So all I can say is that we have a responsibility to stand up for each other, to fight for each other in this moment. And things are going to continue to get bad if this really does become law in June or July. And we have to do everything we can to support those who need abortion services in our country. And as you can tell, this is probably the issue that I'm most passionate about. I work the longest on, but it's something that is near and dear to my heart and something that I've seen firsthand as a needed service. So Akiko, Leslie, anything else you want to add on any of the topics we discussed tonight? I could go on about this topic forever too.
Yeah, I would just say like we need to invest in what women need to thrive, period. And maybe that is an abortion. You know, it depends. It's up to that woman to say. But I think ultimately that I think is the thread that is kind of woven throughout this conversation is like, we have to be able to define our own destiny and define what it is we need for our lives in order to live in more abundance. So that's just, you know, my closing words.
Akiko, yours?
Cash App, BMBOLV. Venmo, BMBOLV. Free Black Mamas.
That's right, sister. Always about that money. I love it. Like a good Sagittarius. Amber, your final thoughts on tonight and any of the topics we talked about.
First and foremost, I want to tell everyone to absolutely go donate to that. Do it. This is an incredibly important issue. And abortion, like they're all incredibly important issues, but the structures that we have in this country that disproportionately harm Black people have been set up for a very long time. And if you can support them, do it. It's our duty. On the abortion side, what I will say is Annette is 110% right that this is not the end. This is not where they're going to stop. Personhood laws specifically can get really crazy. And I think Annette knows this. I'm sure she does. Like when I'm pregnant, if I don't wear a seatbelt and there's personhood laws, whoa, that's all kinds of implications for simple mistakes. And my gravest concern on that ties back to my first point and the point that was so important from this evening from our amazing guests. Those laws will impact Black women far more than they will impact me. We cannot allow that stuff to continue. So be vigilant, stay involved, get involved in all the cause that we talked about tonight, get involved with us. If you've had an abortion, share your story, be a part of the solution because we need as much help as we can get on all of these fronts.
And while we're here, of course, support the Black Mamas bailout. Those apps are in the chat and you can support all of their good work. We're also this week supporting the Wild West Access Fund. That's our local abortion fund for folks to seek services if they cannot afford it. So that's another place you can support as well for Mother's Day. I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Leslie and Akiko for sharing your evening with us. Amber, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We appreciate you all. And I am the only non-mama other than, a pug and, a dog and some tortoises. So happy Mother's Day, Leslie. Nas is like my little nephew. He's one of my favorite kids. Junior, Brandy, all the kids over in Akiko's house. They're so cute. We love them all. Happy Mother's Day, Akiko. Happy Mother's Day, Amber. Happy Mother's Day, Leslie. Love y'all. And thank y'all for joining us tonight. And happy Mother's Day to all of you out there who celebrate. We hope you have a great one. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. And we will talk to you next week from Washington, D.C. Have a great evening, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.